All the matches are going to be featured in the description below, so check them out. If you want, they are also in a playlist on the channel, so you could go check that out if you want to watch it all together. While I have your attention, I would like to ask you guys, do leave us a like, comment, and subscribe to catch more videos about the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, and upcoming deck profiles, some of which are updates to decks that were seen in the tournament. The way this is going to work is we're going to first talk about the 4 decks that got eliminated in round 1. These decks didn't necessarily get a time to shine. They kind of got cut short. We're going to talk about all 4 of them and what their win con actually is. So, the first deck is Ojama's. Alright, Ojama got knocked out in the first round when playing against Thunder Dragon. Now, Ojama really didn't get to show much of anything. It bricked both games, and that's quite common with Ojama. It was quite a bricky deck. Now, it has had an update since then, which we will talk about in just a second, but the main win con of Ojama is to use the cards like your Ojama Blue to search out Ojama Country and Ojama Magic. So if you destroy Ojama Blue by battle, you get to search 2 Ojama cards. You're typically going to want to search for these 2. Activate Ojama Country, pitch Ojama Magic, bring back Ojama Blue. The whole point of this, though, is to get into the extra deck. And the Ojama extra deck is mostly fusion-based, but we do now have a link. The first fusion monster we run is Ojama Knight, and then Ojama King, and finally Ojama Emperor. Now Ojama Knight locks out 2 of your opponent's monster zones, Ojama King locks out 3, and Ojama Emperor locks out none. But he does allow you to recur stuff from the grave, so he acts as a recursion card that the deck desperately needed, and he really is a useful card. So while they didn't get a chance to shine necessarily, they were there in the tournament and they did compete. However, as I say, their time was cut short. Next, we're going to talk about For Hire. For Hire's main win con is actually there can only be one. This is a floodgate that makes it so all monsters on your opponent's side of the field have to be different types. And the way that the For Hire deck is built, there are so many different types going around in the deck that this doesn't hinder us, but it does hinder our opponent. Typically what you're going to want to do is search this card out using Raphael, Champion For Hire, to dig into your deck and add it to hand. He basically will dig deep into your deck depending on how many For Hire monsters you control. If he doesn't manage to get you to your There Can Only Be One, you're going to want to go into Saryuja to dig even deeper. The main goal is to get this can be on the field with several other For Hire monsters so that your opponent is limited to what they can do while you're not. I do wish this deck had done a bit better. I really think it could have stolen the first game that it played against Ancient Warriors. However, I'm not unhappy Ancient Warriors won because they got more time in the spotlight as well. That is the nice thing about this, is at the end of the day, I was kind of rooting for every deck. I kind of wanted every deck to get more time in the spotlight. Just happened that For Hire fell a little short. The next deck to get eliminated in round 1 was Ten Yi. Now Ten Yi can do some really interesting stuff. The first thing is it has a lot of protection for your normal monsters. Now, you're not running a whole lot. You're running, I think, 3 in the deck, if I remember correctly. But what you really want to do is build a lock using Shaman of the Ten Yi and Ten Yi Spirit Sahasrara. This is done because if a normal monster is battled while Shaman of the Ten Yi is on the field, then she lets you pop a card on your opponent's side of the field. So you'll typically pop the card that's attacking it. Sahasrara then makes it so your opponent can only target non-effect monsters. At the same time, as a quick effect, Sahasrara can make a token, which is a non-effect monster. So your opponent's then going to have to get rid of the token before they can even start to deal with either of these 2. And if they don't, then Shaman will get rid of whatever's trying to get rid of the token, and they'll both be protected by Sahasrara's effect. So they didn't really get to show what they did. Unfortunately, the matchup that they played against Metaphys was a bit corrupted. The file didn't really come out at the end of the day, and so we weren't able to fully show the match between this deck and Metaphys. However, this deck didn't come out on top because Metaphys's board wipes were just a bit too much for him. Finally, I think everyone's heavy favorite from the first round eliminees is Crawler. Crawler actually did get its win con on board. The win condition for Crawler is definitely to go into Deus Ex Crawler and flip it face up on your opponent's turn. It then acts as a one-sided skill drain, stopping your opponent from using his or her effects. Now, Deus Ex Crawler actually did pay off, and it did work. However, Crawler fell victim to Altergeist in the first round and Crackdown. And Crackdown took Deus Ex Crawler not once, but twice in the match to steal the game, almost literally, from the Crawlers. Now, Deus Ex Crawler, there's several ways to get it on field. I know it's a bit daunting with this big level 9 line here, but one way is using Crawler Gleal, and another way is using World Legacy Monstrosity. So these cards allow you to see Deus Ex Crawler on the field with no trouble. The problem is World Legacy Monstrosity will put Deus Ex Crawler face up. So how do you flip it face down? Well, there's Book of Moon and things like that, or you could use World Legacy Pawns, which is easily searchable in the deck using some of the World Legacy cards that are throughout the deck as well. So that does it for our first round eliminees. I love all four of them. I really do. I think they're all very interesting and they all do very different things. The interesting lock of using normal monsters and 2 link monsters in Tenyi is very different to the looking for a floodgate in for hires, which is also very different from locking out your opponent's zones in Ojama, and finally from locking out your opponent's effects in Crawler. They all do lock out to your opponent in different ways, and that's what I find truly interesting about these 4 decks. It's just unfortunate they didn't get their chance to shine. So, next on to the decks that got knocked out in the second round. The first of these is Metaphys. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to look at some cards in the deck that aren't part of the main archetype. And we're going to talk about how they impacted the game for the deck. The first card we're going to talk about is Aloof Lupine. Now, Aloof Lupine is a generic starter. It works really well in a lot of banish-based decks, such as Metaphys. And the way that this works is you summon this, you pitch, or you banish from hand a Metaphys monster, and then you banish from deck a Metaphys monster of your choosing, meaning you do get to select the effects that work for you. And so Aloof Lupine came in clutch. However, ironically, I think one of the best plays it had was in round 2 against Thunder Dragon when it didn't banish off a Metaphys, but instead it banished off Necroface. And Necroface banishes 5 from both players' decks when this is banished. Now, unfortunately, if I remember correctly, in the Thunder Dragon matchup, this did not go well for Metaphys. The whole aim of this play is that several Metaphys cards will be banished off that will then trigger on the standby phase. However, Necroface, I think, only hit 3 Metaphys cards. And when you're banishing 10 from your deck, you're kinda hoping to hit a couple more. In comparison to that, though, Thunder Dragon, who also benefits from their stuff being banished, managed to banish off 4 or 5 extenders, which allowed Thunder Dragon to fix its hand and search for cards it was missing. So, this was unfortunate, but it's just the way that the cookie crumbled in that game. Now, I did say non-archetype cards, and that's not entirely possible in this deck. In this deck, there is a card that is a board wipe, which did come into play when fighting Tenyi, because Tenyi only protects monsters from targeting, and, well, from destruction, but not from banishing, and certainly not from board wipe banishing. And because of that, I'm going to say Metaphys Daedalus earns an MVP award for the Metaphys deck. It got it through the first round, being able to wipe out the Tenyi board multiple times in a game, while avoiding the Tenyi board's interesting lock and ability to play around destruction and targeting. The other deck that made it to the second round, but no further, was Ancient Warriors. And again, we're going to talk about some cards in it that really either outshined what I fully expected when I put the decks together, or maybe did exactly what they were supposed to do. The first of these was Gamma Seal. I love Gamma Seal in the Ancient Warrior deck. You have so many ways to bounce it back to your hand, meaning you can use it again. But there's also, it's just such a good card for taking problem monsters off the board, and that's why I really love it in Ancient Warriors, and I do think it is it should be a staple in an Ancient Warriors deck. The other card that obviously plays a big role, or played a very big role, especially when playing against for hire, was Raigeki. Now, Raigeki's one of those cards. It's one of those cards that if you see it and you play it and it goes through, it's obviously going to have a big impact on the game. I think the reason that I am putting it here, though, is you can only run one copy. Seeing it is not super common. And the fact that Ancient Warriors was able to see it means it does deserve some sort of praise for the fact it's even in the deck. It justifies itself by its overpowerful effect and capabilities. The final card, again, I know I said non-archetypal, but I was so impressed with how Ambitious Chow Day, not typically a card that Ancient Warriors goes into, did when playing against the Altergeist matchup. Altergeist was forced to stall and to just try and extend the game any way it could to avoid dealing with Chow Day. It couldn't necessarily find a way around Chow Day because he's protected from targeting as long as there's another Ancient Warrior on the field, meaning that Socotus couldn't bounce it, a lot of the Altergeist traps couldn't target it, and so Ambitious Chow Day was a real problem for the Altergeist deck in its matchup in round 2. However, even with Chow Day, Raigeki, and Gamma Seal, this deck didn't make it to the finals. Ancient Warriors was knocked out by Altergeist, and that's unfortunate. Now, this time I will keep my promise. I will talk about non-archetypal card that made an impact. And we're going to do our best to talk about them as they came out. The first card that we're going to talk about is the Doom and Gloom for the Crawler deck fans. Crackdown stole Deus Ex Crawler not once, but twice. And it really turned the tide, and even turned the skill drain effect on the Crawlers. And this was unfortunate, but it is why Crackdown is so powerful, and it's why Crackdown is in this list. It well and truly makes itself known whenever it is on the field, and it really does push your opponent in a sticky situation. Next, we're going to talk about Solemn Strike. This card came up several times throughout the tournament. It's obviously a good card. It is Solemn Strike. We all sort of know what it does. Pay 1,500, negate an effect or a special summon of a monster. This can be really good. The other reason it's here, though, is because it came up several times. And actually in the finals, it came up 2 or 3 times in a single game. Not even in a match, but in a game. And so I think it was a really important card for the deck in the tournament, and it really did put in the work. And that's why I'm bringing it up here. Next, we'll talk about Titanicider. This isn't a typical card I see run in Altergeist, and I don't understand why. With the meta and with the game being so extra deck centric, Titanicider seems like such an obvious choice. That it is Lost Wind, except it reduces your opponent's attack to 0, not cut in half, and it just keeps resetting itself every time your opponent goes into the extra deck to find an answer for what you're putting on the board. Titanicider played a key role in the finals. It pushed Thunder Dragon to its limits. It forced not 1 but 2, maybe even 3 Titans off the board, just because the Thunder Dragon player had to get Titan out of the way, because a 0 attack monster with no effect is no good. Titanicider is such a good card for the Altergeist deck, and I'm really, really impressed with how it performed, and I'm really glad it was there in the finals, especially, because it really did put in the work. Another card that put in the work, and actually probably stole a win away from the Thunder Dragons, was Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Seeing as you were running pretty much a Spellcaster-only lineup in Altergeist, this being able to turn off Thunder Dragon Fusion really killed Thunder Dragon momentum. It forced Thunder Dragon to stall and try and find a way to be able to play without its extra deck, because getting into its extra deck without its spell card was truly difficult. Obviously, it did eventually find a way through this, and it did eventually find a way to win, but Secret Village did put in the work. It also put in the work, I think, in the second round when it was activated against Ancient Warriors, who require a lot of spell cards to search their deck for their win conditions. The final card I'm mentioning here is a card that I've never seen in any of the Altergeist profiles I've seen elsewhere on the internet. And I don't really know why. I know I'm running a budget variant, meaning that we don't have infinite impermanence running around in the deck, and we don't have evenly matched, we don't have other cards like that. But I don't understand why more Mirror Force cards aren't being played. This deck actually runs two. It does run Blazing Mirror Force as well. The reason I'm bringing up Storming Mirror Force, though, is because of the fact that Storming Mirror Force, returning all the opponent's attack position monsters to the hand, was clutch in the finals. At one point, Altergeist set 5, and Thunder Dragon did its work, and it got down to 1, and it couldn't get rid of that last back row. And on attack declaration, Storming Mirror Force was flipped on Thunder Dragons, getting rid of the Titan that was sitting there looming over Altergeist. So Storming Mirror Force definitely has to take an MVP slot for this deck, just because of the sheer surprise factor that it was there, and because of the fact that it really did steal a key moment away from Thunder Dragon. I don't remember if it did steal the match it was played in, but it definitely did put Thunder Dragon on its heels. Now, we've talked about Altergeist's matchup with Thunder Dragon, so let's talk about Thunder Dragon. The first few cards I'm going to talk about are play starters that really the deck saw a lot of use out of. The first being Aloof Lupine. Again, much like Metaphys, banish a Thunder Dragon from hand, banish a Thunder Dragon from deck. They both get effects when banished typically. That's really good for this deck. The next was Batteryman Solar. Now, this was a play starter that was constantly glued to my hand in the finals. Every single game I saw Batteryman Solar, but I didn't see Aloof Lupine necessarily. Batteryman Solar, not typically my favorite starter in Thunder Dragon. However, when you partner it with Chaos Valkyria, who can banish a card from grave, the ability to Foolish Burial a Thunder Dragon with Batteryman Solar and then banish it with Chaos Valkyria did allow for some really interesting plays. If you banished off Thunder Dragon Roar using Valkyria, then you would get to special summon a Thunder monster producing a token from Batteryman Solar. So this was a really interesting play. It was something that the Thunder Dragons definitely relied on, and it definitely gave Thunder Dragon the chance to compete, and it did give them the chance to find what they needed to find to get into the big plays later on down the stretch against Altergeist. Another card that Thunder Dragon runs, that every Thunder Dragon player runs, so it's nothing too special, is Allure of Darkness. This is such a good card in Thunder Dragon, though, because if you can banish off your Thunder Dragon Roar or your Thunder Dragon Dark using Allure of Darkness, you basically go +3, because you either put a body on board or you net yourself a search. So Allure of Darkness was absolutely clutch, and it did come up a few times banishing off Thunder Dragon Dark, giving us the real power boost and the ability to extend that Thunder Dragon did require, especially in this post-Colossus era where we are highly reliant on getting to Thunder Dragon Titan. You need multiple Thunder Dragons either banished or on the field or in the grave. Another card that helped out, though, was Left Arm Offering. This was typically used to search your Thunder Dragon fusion while banishing off a bunch of Thunder Dragons from your hand. This did come up, I think, twice throughout the tournament and once in the finals, and it really did put in the work. So Left Arm Offering is definitely a key card that I would never think of cutting from this deck. Finally, for the main deck cards that we're going to talk about in Thunder Dragons, Chaos Dragon Legionnaire. We talked about the scenario where Altergeist set 5, Chaos Dragon Legionnaire banishing off, I do believe it was a Thunder Dragon Hawk, a Dragon Roar, and a Dragon Dark from the grave, allowing it to pop 2, helped us get through that board and get rid of 4 of the 5 traps. Obviously, the last of which was the accursed Storming Mirror Force. So, Chaos Dragon Legionnaire, not typically a card I go into very much in my Thunder Dragon build. I do know it's a very good card for the Thunder Dragon deck, but I typically banish off my Thunder Dragons quick enough that they don't sit in the grave. I do run Legionnaire, though, for those weird occasions when they do hit the grave. Finally, the last card, and probably the MVP of the deck, and probably of the tournament, Predaplant, Verte, Anaconda. Now, obviously, when I say MVP, I mean non-archetypal. Predaplant, Verte, Anaconda allowed Thunder Dragon to use Thunder Dragon Fusion not once but twice in a turn. And it allowed it to do it throughout the entire tournament, meaning that at the end of the day, Thunder Dragon often had Pop 2 on its opponent's turn. Coupling this with the ability to pitch Thunder Dragon, search Thunder Dragon, pitch Thunder Dragon, search Thunder Dragon, that is Pop 4 right there. Thanks to Predaplant, Verte, Anaconda, Thunder Dragon was able to do this relatively consistently. So that being said, that's all I got to say about the Thunder Dragons. Now that we've talked about all the decks, I just want to thank everyone for watching. I'd like to let you know there are decks getting updates. So Ojama has now been combined with Melfi to be Oja Melfi. And so there will be a deck profile coming up for that. I do believe it will be next week, which is very exciting because Oja Melfi is a lot of fun. Ancient Warriors has gotten an update to include the new cards from Rise of the Duelist. And we do have a new deck in the house that we will, we will be unveiling very soon. Let's just say, if you like using your opponent's stuff for your own game, keep an eye out on the channel for that one. That all being said, I would like to thank you all for watching. Do leave us a like, comment, and subscribe. Check out any of the matches in the description down below. Check out Team's Facebook page, also found in the description down below. And with all that being said, I'll see you guys at the next video.